All right, so Jeepers Creepers Reborn. What a movie to talk about. I have been so excited for this movie ever since it was first announced that they were considering a new entry without Victor Salva. Maybe that was back in 2019, maybe 2020. It's been a long, long time. Then we got one teaser released and then nothing else for a while. So a lot of people were just like, I don't think it's coming out. And then it just dropped. They're like, yo, it's coming out in like 3 weeks, or at least I found out about it like 3 weeks before it came out, maybe like 2 weeks. And then it's immediately onto the scene. It's only in theaters for 3 days. Wild. I did not expect that at all. I expected maybe a couple more trailers. What on earth was going on here, I was thinking. And also, I was just still really excited because I've been waiting so long for this movie, and I finally got around to seeing it. And I think I saw the thumbnail on a couple YouTube videos, like, this movie's terrible, worst movie ever, worse than three. I can't even remember. It was some pretty dramatic words, and I watched the movie thinking, there's no way this is gonna be anything less than mediocre. And um certain ways you could call it mediocre, but wow, not on a feature film level. Maybe mediocre on films made, period. The um uh the CGI was really, really rough and confusing, and wow, just yeah. Everything was CGI'd. The backgrounds of exterior shots in like the woods or by a field or outside of a house. They were all, not all of them, but most all of them, second and third act CGI, cemetery CGI, woods CGI, creeper at multiple points CGI, a pole going through the creeper's mouth CGI, police officers CGI, crows CGI. There's so many more I'm not even thinking of right now. It was rough. And none of the CGI worked well. None of it blended right in. None of it looked natural with the real humans in the shots. None of it looked real in any scene at any point. It's quite embarrassing that it was released this way. I get it, COVID. Maybe they thought they could do better CGI than they could for the budget, so they just shot a lot of stuff with green screen because they thought it would be easier. But man, you should have done some reshoots. Should have done some reshoots and maybe change certain parts about the script, because maybe actually use some more practical effects. Um, write in a bit more of characters. And I'm saying for the characters that were there, write them in a bit more. There was not much to latch onto here at all, and I looked for it. There was a couple cool moments. Creeper pulled the guy's arm off and ate it and grew a new arm. That was cool because his hand was blown through, just ripped it off, took off the guy's arm and ate it. That was pretty cool. His decoration of corpses was nice. The thing where he was peeling back the head and he was eating the brain, that was kind of cool. Although there was a scene where he was eating air. It was clear there was nothing there that he was eating, and he's just like, and yeah, that was a bit much to watch. I mean, in that moment, I didn't want to see someone eating brains or a creature eating brains, but for the sake of the movie, yeah, that is not something that you can do. Just instead of making a practical effect or even CGIing it in, there's just nothing, nothing. The guy who played the Creeper did pretty well. I gotta give him some credit. Not a great script to work with, but the way that the Creeper was handled and acted, I thought was quite impressive. The makeup on the Creeper, um, pretty dang bad. And it wouldn't have been as bad if they didn't do a ridiculous amount of extreme close-ups on his face. Don't know why they felt the need to do that when the makeup was not up to par. If they only filmed him in decent darkness or from far away and the hat over part of his face, it would have been passable for sure. They did bring back the wings. They brought back his face opening up. But the wings were used in a cool shot of the movie when he was in the bottom of the House of Pain and he jumped up through the garbage chute. In this one, the garbage chute is straight up and down. It's not like a slant. But he jumped straight through it, flying. That was so cool. I love that a lot. Yeah, the cult, they wanted her baby, and the Creeper was cutting the baby out of her, and there was some ritualistic sacrifice where the blood flowed down into the chamber thing where I guess that's where they put the dead. I don't know. Is that like, I'm not very familiar with the cultish things, but that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. They didn't explain why he wanted her baby, so we're just left to come up with why. Kind of like in Curse of Michael Myers, why did she need to have a baby for it to be the last of the bloodline? I don't know. I feel there's way more to latch onto in that film than this one, though. I have no idea why he wanted the baby, unless it's something like once every cycle he needs to eat a baby so that he can be reborn the next time. If that's how it works, it can make sense. You're like retconning the whole series, but you can make it make sense. Maybe he wanted to be reborn because this current body's become decrepit, so if he eats a baby, then he can like become a baby and then grow a fresh creeper from that baby. I don't know. That's the best I can come up with. I don't really see why he wanted the baby. I don't see any rational explanation they gave at all. The baby aspect is very out of nowhere and not explained and not brought back around into anything. It's just she's pregnant and he wants her baby. That's pretty much the whole premise of the movie. He's barely worried about anyone else, just that baby. And listening to Jeepers Creepers, the song. And you have a bunch of side characters that are introduced as though they're gonna be interesting, but there's just nothing to them. You have a redneck that ran a stand at the Whore Fest. The shuriken throwing, what are those? I don't even know what those are called. The spike thing. She's good at throwing let's just call them shurikens. She's good at throwing the shurikens. Our main character, she learns it very quick, and the main male character just, he ain't with it. He ain't good at the shuriken throwing. But anyways, you meet a redneck there that comes off creepy, and it makes it seem like they're gonna make him an interesting character based on how he's introduced, and he doesn't do much of anything at all and dies near the end of the third act, and it's barely impactful because you don't feel like he was really a character or person. He was just there. He was just there. And then there's like this producer or director guy who's a major jerk because the camera's not working, and he becomes extremely one-dimensional, and his arc is something, I guess. He was really angry at everyone, and then he gets really angry at the hillbilly guy, and he's about to like go toe to toe with him. And then our main male lead comes in between them and is like, "Yo, we're stuck together. We're stuck together. Like, let's all get along." Then the guy like has a change of heart, never mentions anything again. Gets his leg caught in a bear trap. A bear trap closes on this guy's leg, and he's just kind of walking around on it after. I saw the actor was trying to act like it was painful and like he was limping, but it's like a bear trap closed on your leg. It's gonna be very, very rough to walk or even just to exist after that. And it's barely a thing. I wonder what the director said to him, because it seemed like the actor was intentionally trying to make it painful, because you could see at the beginning of some shots he would be like just walking around normally, and then he would like think about it and he would be like and then he would like add into it. I like that a lot. I like that the actor seemed to care of that character. And a lot of these actors, you can tell that they were trying, but there's no cohesion really in this film. Like, you have the occultists who barely have any personality or anything. I mean, they're not creepy, they're just weird and they're laughable. All of them didn't really do anything. They were maybe in like 4 scenes besides all the flashes going on with, yeah, we didn't even talk about that yet. All the visions of our main character. She's just seeing herself as like being in the center of the cult and like all their hands on her, maybe being the sacrifice or for the creeper and the creeper walking in. I don't know. I think the cult was doing stuff to cause her to see that, and maybe what she's actually seeing is how it's happened in the past, and they use a recurring vision where they show the new pregnant woman images of herself in that role. That's the only way I can make sense of it, because none of it happens and they don't explain any of it. Yeah, the cult side of things is very weird, and it's not that I hated it, but I didn't appreciate it. It didn't really fit in anywhere. I don't see what they were going for. I mean, there was a lot of occultish things, like her visions, like the blood raining down on the thing, going under there, and like the the cult themselves, but I don't see why it was added to the film. You could argue it fits well into the lore of the Creeper, which I would be willing to venture to make that argument, but this film does not justify its existence in any way. It's just sort of like a backdrop and like, hey, here's something else creepy. Ooh, we got a cult going on. We got like some crazy visions. There's like blood dripping down. I don't get it. I don't get why it was introduced into this film. Could have made it work. Could have done a lot of different things with that, but like nothing was done with it. And you have a really weird situation with the crows. I liked the crows in the original, and I always kind of thought of the crows as being potentially scouts for the creeper, because they start crowing once Derry and his sister walk up to the farm to check it out, and I like that a lot. And I thought it would work well for the creeper. It's a scarecrow, so the crows being in collusion with the creeper worked fine for me in this movie, because I've always loved that idea. But the shots of the white crow and the way it was done and the way the crow was used, I thought were all terrible. Terrible. And I didn't see the necessary reason to make the one white crow with the red eyes and then the rest being black crows. I didn't get that at all. I thought you could just have it be a black crow. But the whole thing at the end where all the crows eat the creeper and basically bring him somewhere else and he's reborn. So in a lot of ways he's invincible unless you kill all the crows. But then what happens then? I don't know. But the crows eating him and then he's reborn off screen. I like the idea of the crows, but they were used so terribly in this film. And they came and they attacked all the people and knocked the redneck off the roof. And I just don't see why the crows were used either. And the CGI of the crows is terrible. The CGI of the ending with the arrow post coming down, the weather vane. Oh, it's terrible. It starts off going slow and then it just speeds up and it hits him right in the face. Oh my gosh. And the girl standing on the porch convincing him to come outside, and then she lets him pick her up and then he stabs her and throws the shurikens. I don't get why she even let him pick her up. Could have easily just flown away with her like he did earlier in the movie when he first captured her. And when she was captured, it was barely a thing in the movie. And then she comes crawling through the vents and she just ends up in the room where they're in. She was in the basement and she crawls through the vents and ends up upstairs, top floor of the house. What is going on? I am so confused by the decisions made in this movie. I really respect the actors for trying, and the set pieces were decent. I'm not even that upset at the graphics or the set pieces or the actors. I'm really upset by the lack of cohesion in the film, the abysmal script writing and character writing, and the CGI so embarrassing. It feels like an insult to me as a viewer. It's nonsensical how this wasn't reshot. Why this was actually released to theaters only makes sense to me in the context of horror movies just don't really matter, and they're just trying to get the quick buck back because they don't respect it enough to reshoot it, and they think horror fans have a low enough bar that this can pass it. And both of those are just sad. I think this movie easily could have been reshot and made a good amount of money. They have some good scenes at the beginning of the creeper coming out of the ground and eating the worms, being reborn. I thought that was great. I thought the opening, even though it was pretty much the exact same as the beginning of the original, was done fine. It was done well. I would have been okay if they took that and ran with it, but then it was just some hidden mysteries thing, like unsolved mysteries thing within the movie that was being watched by our main characters. And that doesn't make any sense because it's exactly what happened with Derry and his sister. But in this movie, they say that the first three movies happen. And I would have been fine because they mentioned that three movies happened about the creeper. I would have been able to justify that they're different than what actually happened in the first three movies. But the director confirmed that it's what happened in the first three movies. The first three movies exist in this universe. So why they would do an exact recreation of the movie instead of just showing the movie didn't make a lot of sense. Unless in this universe, I guess the movie was based on real events that actually happened to an elderly couple. I don't get it. Nothing really connects to an overarching theme, plot, or reasonable movie in this film. And I am very upset because I waited a very long time for this movie to be made. And I was very excited the whole time, and all at once the tragedy just kind of came in. It seems like a very fun film to hate on. It might be an entertaining watch specifically to hate on in the future because, man, this is a classic in a lot of ways for how everything is gotten wrong. I, even as upset I am, this is how hopeful I am. I'm hopeful for another sequel, not made by these people, but in the Jeepers Creepers franchise, that gets this right. You can take the like one or two things this movie did good and run with it and mainly focus on the first and second movie and work it all into something wonderful for a true reboot of the series. And even bring in the crows, bring in the creeper coming out of the ground, maybe even bring in the cult if you want. But make it work and make sense and respect the viewer and have good graphics and have characters that are anything and have a plot that can actually be latched onto and followed through on. That's all I ask. This creeper character is amazing. You could bring back this actor or the original. Honestly, I prefer the original, but both of them are very solid and run with it. Focus on making excellent makeup for the creeper. Focus on actually having some good, interesting cinematic shots. That's another thing about this movie. The shots were awfully bland and uninteresting. I get it. The whole movie's uninteresting. I'm not going to come down on the cinematographer specifically, but man, a lot of the shots in this movie just made me even less interested than I already was, because the angle never really showed effectively what was going on. In certain scenes I wanted to see what was going on. At maybe big moments it did, but in a lot of moments it was like, so our main character's in the basement trying to get off the table and like struggling to stand and like find stuff. And the shot is it's from the other sides of the table, and it's like at like waist shot, so we can't even see our main character. And it's like, what am I even supposed to be looking at on the screen right now? Like, why is this shot happening? And it's just very odd decisions. And I can't help but be hopeful, but I'm disappointed beyond words. This movie is a very solid 2 out of 10. I do not recommend anyone go see this movie unless you are a humongous fan of the franchise and want to be disappointed and want to see what has become of the franchise, or if you're somebody that doesn't really like the character and just want to laugh. Even if you're a fan and you just want to come laugh at someone making a really bad horror movie, really bad horror movies, if that's your thing, this is great. This is great stuff. If you love to be disappointed by movies, specifically horror movies, I highly recommend Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Thank you all so much for watching. This rant has gone on a very, very long time, much longer than planned for, but I appreciate anyone who made it to the end of this, because wow, this was a rough one. See you, everybody.